What's going on, everyone? If you want to get the best comps for teamfight tactics in set 8, I've been working with Voidson, and we listed over 20 team compositions that you guys can run right now, sorted in each of their own respective tiers. We do have a TBD section in the C tier, but let's first go over the S, A, and the B. That's your bread and butter. That's your go-tos. S tiers, I'd say normally I'd say you could force them, but in this set, because of the way augments work, right? You have the hero augments and the regular augments. It's hard to just force something unless you get the right augment for them. So normally S is auto force, but I'm just gonna leave it now as very strong. So if you do have some sort of game that can kind of go towards it, I would go towards that. A tier we're gonna define as if you get a decent start with it, it could be the best comp in the world in the right situations, or it's just not as consistent as the S tier. And then for B tier, I would say only play those if you get the exact augments you need for that comp. So best comp by far right now, Hacker Zed. There's just no doubt about it. He's seen everywhere and he's just hacking away at everyone. Soraka Admin, Brawler Ashe are I'd say the regular S tiers, Hacker Zed being the S+, and then Anima Misfortune, maybe around the S- right now. We'll go into how to play every single one of these compositions right after we do over the summary. So we go over positioning, difficulty, item dependency, variance, requirements, how to play, items, core, augments, pretty much everything you need to know. But let's go over the rest of the summary first. We have in the A tier, Vertical Star Guardian, Spellslinger Taliyah, Talon. I love Talon Reroll personally. Gangplank Supers, another great reroll comp. Kaisa Recon. Kaisa, very underrated, I think. I personally love her concept because she uses both attack speed and ability power, which isn't really a combination we see so much in the past. Force Viego, Threats, Zoe Reroll, Camille Reroll, Duelist Reroll, and then Samira rounding out the A tier. In the B tier, we have Wukong, Lulu, Vayne, Kayle, Nasus, Super Draven, and Anima Jinx. As you guys can notice, in the B tier, it's all rerolls. So most of the 4-cost carries, they're in the A or S tier comps, but in the B tier, that's mainly going to be where a lot of the rerolls are. There's still some rerolls everywhere else, but you just need very specific augments if you want to do a 2-cost reroll, so that's why they're all B tier. So they might stay there for a lot of this set. So starting at the top, we have the S tiers, Hacker Zed. So Zed is going to jump on the horse and go all the way to the back line. Zoe's going to be a nice secondary carry. So the thing about Zed is he's great because you could flex him with pretty much any secondary carry. So you have Zed as the main one, and then sometimes you could use Zoe, sometimes you could use a Aurelion Soul. You could literally use anything to support Zed, depends what you get items for. So if you get items for Zoe like Blue Buff Morello, go ahead and play Zoe. If you get pure AP, maybe A Soul, maybe one of those random legendary units like Fiddlesticks, Mordekaiser, literally anything you can think of, it's going to be good to go. I like having at least 2 duelists for Zed, but you could go for 4 duelists. You could stick at 2 as well. Laser Core is kind of fake. It does a little bit of damage, but not that much, so don't worry too much about that. You could play its different duelists other than Yasuo if you don't want to. But yeah, Vi is good because she gives armor penetration. Zed also has built-in armor penetration in his ability, but having the Last Whisper just adds to his tank killing ability. So item holders down here, Ashe, Kayle, Jax, Vayne, Kaisa, and Ezreal. All those are pretty good. Ezreal can take the AP items, Kaisa can take the attack speed items, Vayne, Kayle, Ashe, they could do pretty much any Zed items, and then Jax is okay as well. But yeah, this is a very straightforward comp to play. You just do 3 Laser Core early because it's really good early game synergy, especially with Renekton, Ashe, and Yasuo. And then as you level up, add in Brawler, Recon, transition into Hacker Zed at around level 7 or 8. That's going to depend on how high your Econ and HP are. So you may have noticed we have 1, 2, 3, 4-cost units. So level 8 is ideal. So if you can do a fast 8, if you look at the leveling guide we released just now, fast 8 would be the way to go. But, that's the perfect world. We don't always live in a perfect world. So sometimes you roll at 7 to sort of stabilize before that. Again, it's going to depend on your HP. But yeah, check out the leveling guide. I'll leave a link up here if you guys are curious on that. Also, if you're at level 7 and you're thinking about whether to go 8 or not, if you have a 2-star Vayne holding your items, you don't have to roll at 7 to look for your 1-star Zed. You could wait till 8. You don't even have to roll at 8. Sometimes if your Vayne's just chilling, you could switch into a legendary comp later on. You don't have to play the Zed comp, but I'm just giving you guys some options out there because TFT is all about managing your options. Onto the items. For Zed, I'd say Edge of Night is the most important item. there's just no replacement for it. Rageblade, obviously very good for him to stack up more attacks as the game goes longer. Last Whisper, great for like armor penetration. If you get stuck on a tank, it really helps with that one. I like Runons a lot because you could just slam it early, and I've been liking taking Cloak a lot in the early game now. So if you have a lot of extra cloaks, Runons can be useful. Giant Slayer obviously does the same thing as Last Whisper, but in a different way. Deathblade, just pure AD is great on him too. IE, great. Titan's Resolve, great. Probably Handed Justice is good too. But that's pretty much it. You don't need any healing item on Zed because he gets it from the Hacker trait. So you don't need like Bloodthirster, you don't need Hextech Gunblade, you don't like need the Hand of Justice, you know. You also don't need any of the healing augments. But I'm not saying never take them. Like they're still useful, but you don't like need 3 sources of healing. Like 2 tops and like 1 preferable, you know. Zoe items, blue buff Morello Gunblade. Other units, they just get tank items. So I like using Sejuani as my main tank. Echo's great as well. Whoever you 2-star first, that's gonna be your item holder. Like you're not gonna be like, oh, I have a 1-star Sejuani, 2-star Echo. I look at the guide and I see a tank item on Sejuani, so I'm gonna put the item on Sejuani. Nope, that's not how you're supposed to play. You want to put items on whoever you have upgraded because they're just going to be a stronger unit. And Sejuani and Echo, they're pretty comparable, right? They're both 4-cost units, both pretty beefy. So just put it on whoever you 2-star first. On to the next build, we have Soraka Carry. So Soraka, she's going to be like just like a blue buff bot in this set. She is incredible with that item because she just casts so quickly and then she gets her 3rd cast and boom, pops their entire board. Sejuani's going to be the main tank here. Same story with the Zac versus Sejuani. If you have a 2-star Zac, like just put items on him. If your Sejuani's only 1-star, but in an ideal world, they'll be on Sejuani in the late game. Soraka, yeah, she just likes flat AP, and I honestly like Archangels a bit more. But people have been telling me Hat is a little bit better because you kind of waste the tier mana because you have a blue buff already for the first cast. But it really depends if you think the fights are going to go long or if they're going to be a bit short. For Sejuani, just generic tank items like Warmogs, Sunfire good, Stoneplate good. You could do stuff like Ionic Spark if you want to get a little cute or something like that. Dragon Claw against the magic damage teams, and then like Bramble Vest if they have IE or JGs to prevent the crit damage. Heart's gonna also be like your built-in Guardian Angel, so that's another reason why people like the Hat a bit more. But you know, it's like perfect items are great, and we'll actually go over a lot of perfect items later on this weekend. So subscribe for that if you have not already. But obviously, like just getting slammable items is more important than getting perfect items because saving life total is a very important thing to do in TFT. So Gadgettine is going to be your bread and butter to get to Soraka. There are a couple of item holders that we've listed out here: Lulu, Lux, and Ezreal. Yumi, those are going to be the key early game ones. And then worst case, if you don't have them, like you could use Kaisa or Zoe 1-star until you get there. And we have the other variations listed out here, but really Soraka items, you just need blue buff. Like it's so important. She just casts so much faster, and we all need her to get to her 3rd cast because that's her big cast. And yeah, if you don't have that, it's like, it probably drops this comp down a tier if you don't have blue buff, which is ironic, right? Because you need tiers to build blue buff. But the core is just Soraka, LeBlanc, Zoe, and Sona, and then you just add in random units. So all these tanks you see here, like, yeah, these are great to have, but they could be anyone. Literally anyone. Whoever you're getting 2-star, put them in. You could also duo carry, which is pretty good. And then like there's also like the full admin comp. If you get like a good admin bonus, like generally you want to like dive deeper into admin, but sometimes it's just like whatever. It's just like a generic team buff or something like that, and then you don't care that much. But if it gives you like specific Soraka stuff, like AP or something like that, then yeah, you'd want to stack more admin. So it's going to depend on your game. Sometimes you could also go deeper into Heart as well. I've seen like 4 or 6 Heart being played quite often too. But items are listed out for down here: blue buff, Death Cap, Jeweled Gauntlet, Giant Slayer, Gunblade, Archangel Staff, Handed Justice. Just the generic APs plus blue buff. Any tank items will do. It'll really depend on your lobby. So like, I feel like this set in particular, you really need to be scouting a lot because you need to see what damage types your opponents are doing. So if you're facing a lot of magic damage, obviously like you'd prefer Dragon Claw over Bramble Vest, and like opposite case as well. If they have like crit, then obviously you want Bramble Vest against both of them too. On Zac, he really likes Warmogs because he loves stacking health. So it's going to depend on your unit and who you're facing. So you just have to scout a bit as you play. But the generic tank items will do. If you're like really lazy, just build like Stoneplate Warmogs on every tank and then call it a day. AP items on Zoe is like okay, and then you could also use AD and attack speed items on your secondary carry if you happen to like hit a random 4-cost or 5-cost unit that like somewhat helps out your team. Augments we have down here. Oh, I forgot to talk about augments in the last one, I believe, but it's okay. You guys can check this all out on my website at bunnymuffins.lol/meta. This video will go over every single comp, so you could always skip over to a comp that you are more interested in, but it's obviously all on the website as well. And I'll be updating this meta snapshot every single Friday for like the rest of the set. I've been doing this for like 2 years now. This might be one of the longest standing tier lists, but we have some augment recommendations down here if you want to dive a little deeper. Onto the next build, we have Ashe Reroll. This is like a weird thing. It's like a flexible reroll comp. So that normally doesn't make any sense because normally reroll, you like go for the same 5 or 6 units every single time. But you don't necessarily need an Ashe or Renekton hero augment, which we say down here. You could use one of the team buffers later on in the game, and that's perfectly fine. I'd say the most important thing to have is items on Ashe, so Rage Blade and then like AD items are really good. You're going to be rolling on stage 3-1 at level 4 if you naturaled at least 6 Ashes. If not, you'll do a slow roll. And then after that, once you hit your Ashe 3, you just level up, put in random tank units and call it a day. Or like threat units if you want to like splash some fancy stuff. Items for Ashe is Rage Blade, Last Whisper, Giant Slayer, Runon's Deathblade, and an Infinity Edge, all the AD items, and then just random tank items on Renekton. And if you guys are new to TFT, let's say you just watched the beginner video and then you see this video recommended, reroll comps are typically easier to play. I list out difficulties of each of the comps over here. So if it says low, it's likely easier to play. So go ahead and try those if you guys like aren't really that confident in like what you're doing or something like that. But onto the next build, we have Misfortune Anima Squad. So they finally added bunnies to TFT. Very happy about that. Misfortune, she's like hit or miss, literally, because she only hits the first thing in her bullet range, but that's fine, right? As long as she's targeting multiple units, it's going to be at least somewhat decent. But she does need a secondary carry because she has the ace trait, which pretty much executes people below a certain health threshold. And if you have someone else damaging people, it really helps her a lot because once she kills a first person, she could start targeting the next one, right? So it kind of snowballs on that. So having a secondary carry with Misfortune, super, super important. That could either be Nunu, that could be Vayne. There might be another one that I'm not thinking of. Even like Riven can deal some damage sometimes. But the core of the comp is just AP, and then item holders we have down here, Jinx, Lulu, Kaisa, Lux, Zoe, LeBlanc. Usual suspects for AP items. And like she's pretty flexible, right? There are a lot of different variations to the comp. You could do 3 or 5 Anima Squad. I believe in this version, we only have 3 of them. And then we're running a bunch of other random synergies as well, just to kind of complement our team a bit. But the comp is like super flexible. We list out the core down here. So it's just like 3 Anima Squad plus frontline units. So that's really all you need. Just build your team off of that. So MF, Riven, Vayne, and then like random units. But it doesn't have to be Vayne or Riven. Like if you don't have Vayne items, like don't play Vayne. There are other Anima Squad units you could use instead. For example, you could use like Jinx plus Echo for Prankster, you know, and then Echo's an Aegis. So maybe you pair that Aegis with Alistar and Vi, and you have a lot of different recipes you can use, you know? Again, in the how to play section, we walk you through like each of the stages. So once you have this person carrying items such as Jinx, you replace her later on with MF. If you do Kaisa and Vayne duo carry, you could swap that into Vayne eventually with the attack speed, and then Kaisa with the AP, and then go into the MF2. Lots of different ways you could get there. It's like all roads lead to Rome, you know, all roads lead to MF if you know like which way to go, I guess. We have some augments down here. Cybernetic uplink, super good because MF loves mana regen because that's her weakness this set. She doesn't generate a lot of mana, so Shojin incredibly important on her. Axiom Arc gives her mana, Celestial Blessing. Normally on AP units, you prefer Celestial Blessing. AD units, they generally like Thrill to Hunt more. This isn't a hard set in stone rule, but the reason why Celestial is more useful on AP is because they'll kill multiple units at a time when they cast their spell. So if you have Thrill to Hunt, they'll overheal a lot. Whereas AD units are like hitting one person at a time. They kill them, they heal, go on to the next one, take a little damage, hit them, kill them, heal. But APs, they like burst everything at once generally, so that's why Celestial is slightly better. Radiant Relic's pretty good because you really care a lot about MF. If she gets super buffed, then it's really nice. Exiles is okay to burn time, and then Battle Mage, you could kind of play around with that to Either get your Fiddle active, Nunu active, your secondary active. I have seen some MFs on second row, but it's a little risky if you're facing like Sejuani's, for example. So that's going to be a judgment call depending on how your game's going and who you're facing. Onto the next build, we have Vertical Star Guardian. So what vertical means is you go deep into a trait. So notice how we have 7 Star Guardians there. So when we say Vertical Star Guardian, we mean we're going 7 or 9 Star Guardian, not like 3 or 5. And this is going to be the base build. So you have Kaisa. Static Shiv is going to complement your Taliyah so much because in case you guys didn't know, Static Shiv reduces the enemy magic resist and Taliyah does magic damage. So Kaisa whittles them down a bit. Taliyah throws up her wall and bursts everyone with it, and it just complements each other so beautifully, right? Echo, great at holding all your tank items. He's going to probably be the solo tank of this build. Rel, she's like tiny bit tanky, but she's a 2-cost unit, you know? Generally, like when you're in the late game, your 2 or 3-cost tank generally needs to be 3-starred. If not, they can't compete with the 4-cost tanks. So it's not set in stone, but it's a general rule of thumb. But Echo's super good at that stuff. Sunfire is really good on Echo because he jumps a bit to the back, so sometimes he applies it to like very critical units. And yeah, like just run as many Star Guardians as you can. They generate like a ton of mana from each other just from auto attacking and stuff. So yeah, but yeah, over here we mentioned that it's like a pretty good top 4 comp. If in case you don't get Syndra 2-star, and that's typically true of vertical compositions. Because you go deep into a trait, you're still running stuff like Lux, which she really doesn't do much. Yumi, probably not doing that much either compared to like the random legendary teams that have like a bunch of 2-star legendaries or a bunch of 2-star 4-costs, but that doesn't mean they're bad comps, you know? It's just good for top 4ing, and then if you can pivot to something else later, you generally do it. But this comp has a pretty good spike, that's why we listed out in the A tier. But yeah, as the comp name suggests, you just play a lot of Star Guardians. That's really all there is to it. And then you slowly build up your team over time. Add in 3, 5, 7, and 9 when you can fit them. And then like when you're in between a threshold, maybe play like a threat unit, you know, maybe play like a Cho'Gath, a Rammus, a Zac, or like a Vel'Koz even. There are a lot of different options you could do there. Items for Kaisa, like definitely Rageblade and Static Shiv, I'd say, are the most important. Archangel's works too. Any generic AP item works as well. On Taliyah, I like Spear of Shojin the most, but you could go full damage on her. Both builds work and very valid. And then you could build any of the hybrid damage items as well, such as like Giant Slayer, the healing items, or even like a Morello that isn't so bad either. Annie and Echo, like you could play Annie in this build as well. It just depends on how deep you go into Star Guardian versus going into Spellslinger. But yeah, they just want generic tank items. Really, the core of this is just Star Guardian. Obviously, Star Guardian, Crest, and Heart are really good. Cybernetic Uplink, absolutely insane in this build because you get so much mana bonus from the Star Guardian trait. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. Obviously, hero augments, like if you get the Taliyah or Kaisa ones and Echo ones, like take them. Like they're literally in your build, so it's like I don't know what to tell you, you know, it just makes it really good. The best non-carry one would be Echo's Freeze. I guess that might be Echo's carry version. I'm not sure actually. I forget what his other one is, but like you don't need Taliyah carry augment for this to work. You know, you could just have the Taliyah and then like you don't even need this Echo one, but it's just a good one that we like to point out. Next build up we have is a different version of Taliyah carry. This one focuses more on Spellslinger. I believe we have 4 Spellslingers here. We have Annie, Janna, Taliyah, and Sona, and then we also have 2 Hearts, Syndra and Sona, and then just like generic tank items in Echo and Alistar. So like this build, it's like similar to the MF build, but it's like slightly weaker because you really need Spellslingers for her to activate. MF, she really doesn't need any synergies. She works fine just on her own. Like you don't even need Anima Squad technically on MF. Like it helps definitely, but like it doesn't like give her that much power compared to what Spellslinger does for Taliyah. So that's like the slight difference there. But the way to play this comp, you just go fast state. Notice how like expensive this build is. We have like 3 legendaries listed out here and 2 4-costs. So like yeah, you definitely want to go level 8 and even push level 9 for that. Taliyah items same as before. Annie and Echo same as before as well. And then the core here is 3 Star Guardian and 4 Spellslinger. Same augments are going to work out essentially pretty well. Just because they're very similar comps. Onto the next build, we have Talon Reroll. So this one is a little bit different. You really just need Talon augments for this to work, and it's very dependent on that. And this is great comp to like top 4 with, because you blow past everyone. You'll have like high HP once you hit the Talon 3, and then it kind of falls off a bit at the end. You have to like play like a Viego later on, maybe get some random legendaries in there, but hopefully like everyone's health should be low after you play a bit of Talon, because he's just like very punishing, you know. He did get nerfed a bit, so that's why he's in the A tier right now, but you just play simple reroll for 1 cost, and I should probably link this thing on the website to go to the 1 cost reroll leveling guide, but I'll probably do that for next week. But that's all up here. In case you guys are wondering where to find that, it's at the top. Just go to leveling up here and then scroll down a bit. We have like standard leveling first, which is what you're doing for most stuff, and then 1 cost reroll. Or like, just check out the video. I need to put that link there, but it'll be updated in due time. You guys gotta give me a small break at the start of the set. Okay, so let's go on into Gangplank Supers. This is a heavy reroll build. Gangplank Carry. You hit as many 3 stars as you can. So ideally, it's going to be Gangplank, Lee Sin, Malphite, Vi, and Fiora. Those are the ones you could realistically hit. And if you get a lot of 3-star units, like this comp could win the game, because it's like, I mean, that's how it's built around, right? But the risk you take when doing that is a little bit high sometimes. But you guys can check out the full comp here. We have Vi and Malphite as the bruisers. We have Lee Sin's the bruiser. We have Malphite and Alistar as mascots. And then we have Fiora for Duelist for Gangplank, and then Janna just to buff everyone. And then Sona, she's a heart as well. I believe Lee Sin's a heart too, and she gives you Spellslinger. So it's just like a great like horizontal comp. So if you get like Stand United, like I guarantee that's listed down here in the augments. It is not. I'll add that later. It's going to be really, really good, because you're like running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 synergies. Like, holy cow. That's like a lot of bonuses from Stand United, as you can imagine. But yeah, you just play this like any other 1 cost reroll comp, because you really need the Gangplank 3. So to do that, you slow roll at level 5 or you hyper roll at level 4. And that just depends on how many Gangplanks you have. The general rule of thumb is if you have 6 or more Gangplanks, roll at level 4 at 3-1. If you have 5, it's like borderline, that's a judgment call. But if you have 4 or less, then definitely slow roll instead. Onto the next build, we have Force Viego. So Viego, probably one of my favorite champions so far. Like, just watching the resets is just like, it's just fun to watch. I don't know how to describe it. But the base of the comp is just like Renegades, lots of Aegises, and 4 Force. So pretty like static build, I would say. Maybe like the core is 2 Force, 3 Renegade, and then the rest you could kind of flex around. But I really like this version because, especially with the Ionic Spark on Viego, I don't know what it is. When I build 3 pure damage items on my Viego, like Archangels, Jeweled Gauntlet, Hand of Justice, or like something like that, he just doesn't pop off as much. But when I add the Ionic Spark to him, he just does so much incredibly better. So it's just kind of worth it. It's like, remember when we played Katarina reroll back in the day? This was maybe 2 sets ago or something, maybe in set 6 or maybe even set 5, I don't remember. But people built Ionic Spark on Katarina instead of like Rabadon's Death Cap, and it was much, much better. And I think it's the same story with the Viego here. Main tanks are going to be either Echo or Leona, whoever's 2-starred. And then Aphelios is a great like late game insurance for your carry, because obviously Aphelios is a legendary carry. He's all AD, so he can hold your AD items, and he's going to be pumping out a lot of DPS back there. So a lot of people ask me, do I want single target Aphelios or do I want the AoE Aphelios? Well, both of them do a little bit of AoE, but one of them is more for like fewer targets, one's for more targets. So if they're like grouped up, if they have like a Janna and they're all grouped up, obviously the AoE one's good. If you want to get more resets, the single target one is better, or like the one that focuses fewer, because like, I mean, they'll put people lower so that Viego can just jump on them and kill them. So it really depends on how the enemy is positioned. Depends what champions you're facing. Also, if you don't have items on your Aphelios, or if he's 1-star, like the stun one is generally pretty good too, so don't forget about that one either. But that's like the quickest TLDR that I can give you on which Viego gun to pick. But this comp is generally fast 8 because it's a pretty expensive comp. We have 2 4-cost and 2 5-cost units. And yeah, like you can roll on 7, but the thing is the stabilizers aren't that stable. Like your 3-cost units are Alistar and Zoe. They're not going to stabilize you. So like you would definitely prefer to roll on level 8. Ionic Spark, again, that's my go-to. Jeweled Gauntlet, crit is really good because it helps him get a reset, because sometimes you could just kill stuff that you just would have never killed before. Rabadon's is fine though as well. And then I like one healing item. It could either be from an augment, such as Thrill the Hunt, or just like Hand of Justice or something like that. Typically when I have Jeweled Gauntlet, I love Hand of Justice because the crit just works really well together, because Hand of Justice gives a lot of crit now. On to the next build, we have Kaisa Recon. So this one is like really good if you can hit it. It's a little risky because sometimes you don't get your 3-cost 3-stars. It's really hard to hit those. And if you're not getting those in the mid game, like, you're pretty screwed. But the good thing about this comp is that you're going for 3 different guys: Nilah, Kaisa, and Vayne. So it's like pretty high chance you hit 1 or 2 of them, right? It depends what Mortdog wants you to do that day, if he wants you to be happy or not. But like, as with AP comps, like, you just do Lulu, Ezreal, Lux, item holder, and then obviously if you get Kaisa early, just throw it on her. But then you also play like random front lines or synergies, such as like Gadgettine, Defenders, things like that. Like, the early game's pretty similar for a lot of these different comps. Maybe I come out with an early game guide later on. But typically, like, you reroll for Kaisa, Vayne, and Nilah at level 7. And if you have like no copies of them and you're like kind of chilling, you don't need to roll, you could do it at level 8 instead, but that's kind of rare. You generally want to do it at level 7. Items for Kaisa: Archangel's Rageblade. It's a little bit different from the previous build we did before, where we focus more on Static Shiv. If she's a secondary carry, Static Shiv's really good, but if she's your primary one, then you want to like deck her out a little bit more. And then Vayne just uses your leftover AD and attack speed items. I'd prioritize the tank items over the Vayne items, unless you have a Vayne 3, of course. The core is down here: 2 Recon, 3 Star Guardian, and then for the augments down here, we have Celestial Blessing, Thrill the Hunt, Second Wind, Scope Weapons. A lot of the healing ones work pretty good with this comp, because Nilah, if she's only 2-star, she really needs it to keep alive, because like, you don't have that much front line, so the healing's pretty decent. And since they're Recon, sometimes they like jump away and get a kill and then they heal back up. Like, I see that happen a bunch of times too. But onto the next build, we have Threats. Threats, you'd obviously need threat level maximum to make this work, right? I'm not saying you can't win with the only threat comp, but like, why would you purposely play an only threat comp for no particular reason? That wouldn't make any sense, right? But Bel'Veth carry, pretty decent. Asol is the other carry. Like, you guys already know what they do, right? Like, if you need armor, Rammus; if you need MR, Cho'Gath; if you need health, Zac; and then like Bel'Veth for AD, Asol for AP, Fiddlesticks for late game insurance, and Urgot for like farming more items. So it's all pretty like straightforward and stuff there. But you really just want to play these guys and then kind of mix and match other traits as well, depending on what you need, and pretty much go from there. It's like a flex comp, so you can like deal with that later. But obviously, if you have threat level maximum, like, go wild with the threats, right? But onto the next build, we have Zoe Reroll. Very, 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 very fun comp, because I love blue buff Zoe with Morello. It just makes so much sense. And you just kind of do a stall comp, and it's a lot like the old stall comps of the past. And yeah, but if you do get Zoe 3, it is a little hard to hit, because like, everyone's using Hacker, everyone's using Prankster, so it's a little more difficult than Cassiopeia back in the day. But if you do, she's obviously really, really strong. We have the early game down here. Like, Gadgettines is obviously preferred because you're running like Zoe eventually, and then you pivot out of them later on. I think Gadgettine's probably one of the strongest early game synergies. You pretty much always never get a bad item. But yeah, it's like, but yeah, you could go to level 7 or 8, or even like fast 9 and skip rerolling for Zoe 3 and then pivot into like a late game legendary board. There are a lot of different options here. But going on into the next build, we have Camille Reroll. This is like one of the more simpler things. If you get a Camille specific augment, it's good. Otherwise, don't play it. So do keep that in mind. A lot of the rerolls that we're going to go over, especially in the B tier, they all have this theme where you like need to get the very specific augment. If not, it's like, I mean, there's better stuff to do in life, you know, and better stuff to do in TFT if that's the case. So Renegade's probably the main trait you want to focus on here, because she like is a Renegade. Admin, not that important unless it's really good for her. So if you get like an AD admin trait, then yeah, like, go wild with the admins. If not, like, you could just kind of keep this base build that you see here and maybe add in like a threat as you level up. But of course, like, at level 8, because we only list out, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 units here. If the admin's really good, obviously add those in. If you get Renegade Heart, you can think about adding in 2 more Renegades. The opportunities are almost endless. But to play this, we are a 2-cost reroll comp. I don't believe we went over that playstyle yet. So to do that, you would want to roll at level 6 with as much econ as possible. So you just slow roll at level 6, similar to what you do for the 1 and 3 cost rerolls. You just do it at level 6 instead of level 5 or level 7. Onto the next build, we have Yasuo Fiora reroll. Very similar comp to the one we just saw because, again, you're playing the 2-cost units. This one revolves around Duelist, and this one's pretty good if you get a Yasuo augment or a Fiora augment. If not, like, same story as before. Like, a lot of these 2-cost rerolls, they're only good because of the hero augment. So it's like, if you don't have that, like, go for something else. But yeah, you just reroll at level 6. Again, if you're new to the game, difficulty is low here. So all these reroll comps, definitely something worth trying. For items on Fiora, she kind of likes the AD sustain builds. Bloodthirster Titan's pretty good. On Yasuo, you just like going pure damage. Maybe like one survivability item, just because he's kind of like your main carry. Onto the next build, we're back to Civilization, where we have the 4-cost Samira build. And look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4 4-cost units and 2 legendaries. Are we going to fast 8 or are we going to roll on 7 here? That's a pop quiz for you. Obviously, you want to fast 8 in ideal situations. So to do that, you kind of just like play strongest board until stage 4 or 5. Level up to 8, you probably have like 40 gold or 30 gold to roll down at that point, and like you just pray you hit something, you know? Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. If you have like really lucky game where you have like a ton of health at 4 or 5, you could go level 8 and chill and not roll and roll on 5-1, but generally, like whenever you level up to the level that's like optimal for rolling, you generally want to roll there. But we have a bunch of different item holders here. We've been going over a lot of AP compositions, but we have some AD over here. So Ashe, Kayle, Sivir, Senna, those are going to be the AD early game high item holders. Obviously, it depends on what type of tanks you have, and you kind of just play around that. For Samira, Last Whisper, I'd say is mandatory. 1 healing item is good, and then the 3rd damage item doesn't really matter. Aphelios, just get anything on him. He's going to smack people no matter what, you know? For frontline items, you want to focus on Zac, Echo, or Sejuani. So whoever you 2-star first, that's going to be your main tank, you know? But obviously, you can mix and match the stats a little bit. If you have a Warmogs, I would put that on Zac. If you want, like, mana, put, like, a Protector's Vow on Sejuani. I forget what the item is called. Like, Winter's Approach, Protector's Vow. The one that builds from Tyr and Chain Vest, because you want Sejuani to cast faster, obviously, too. If you have a Sunfire Cape, maybe throw that on Echo because he jumps to the back if you don't have Nunu yet. Obviously, like, Nunu's the best holder of Sunfire Cape because he always goes to the back line, but if you don't have him yet, Echo's a good holder for that, too. So a lot of different things you can consider. Again, we'll be doing the item guide later on. Wukong reroll. We're finally into the B tier, so... Obviously, if you actually want to play any of these B tier comps, you better have their carry augment. So for Wukong, like, just get the carry augment. Like, it's just not worth to run if you don't have it. But you'd make him your Mecha Prime, obviously. You'd run 5 of them, and then they just attach to Wukong, and you go from there. So you want Set and Leona not getting Mecha Prime because they're the better units, so to speak. So you want Jax and Draven being absorbed. After that, you just kind of want to be a little tanky. So you run Rel and Riven, so you get 4 defender, and then Wukong just is like a super tank, and then hopefully he kills stuff. And he will kill stuff if you have the hero augment. If not, like, I highly recommend playing something else. But this is 1-cost reroll, so you roll at either level 4 at 3-1 or slow roll at level 5 for Wukong 3. But onto the next build, we have Lulu reroll, 1-cost reroll again. So we do the same exact thing as we did before with the Wukong, except now we're clicking on Lulu instead, and the items are changed up a little bit. Blue buff, great on Lulu, and then AP items, 1 maybe sustain item, and then for Annie, main tank, you obviously want Annie 3-star, and then later on as you level up, you add in like Echo, Soraka, and then you're pretty much set from there. The one weakness of this comp is that you're only rolling for 1-cost unit, so it's a little awkward. I hate rolling for just one thing. That's why when you compare this comp with like other reroll comps that are maybe in the A tier instead of the B tier, like let's think of the Yasuo Fiora comp. Yasuo and Fiora are both 2-star units, or maybe the Nyla, Vayne, Kaisa comp. Those are all 3-cost units. So you have like 3 things you're rolling for. But in the Lulu reroll, you're really only rolling for one of them. So that's probably why it's a little weaker than the other ones. And it makes logical sense, right? If Lulu was super strong, maybe that would make it more balanced. But maybe that's a good way to balance a game. If you have a comp that is easier to roll for, make that comp a little weaker than a comp that's harder to roll for. But who knows if they do that, you know? I'm sure they try to, but maybe it doesn't happen all the time. But onto the next build, we have the Vayne reroll build. So this one, you just go like, I guess you don't need to reroll for this, but obviously if you get her to 3-star, it's going to be a lot better. But you could use her and pivot into other comps later on, or switch on over to Aphelios in the late game. So if you're playing this comp and you're like, hey, I'm not getting that many Vaynes, maybe go level 9, roll for Aphelios, and then like switch into that. Or maybe you get a bunch of AP items, you could switch into like maybe the Zed build. Lots of different things you could do from there. But Set's going to be your main tank, and then you have like Vayne MF kind of in the backline with the Bunny Squad. And yeah, you're pretty much set to go from there. You want like 3 or 5 Anima Squad, but like keep in mind, Vayne's a 3-cost unit, so she's going to get outscaled unless you go for her 3-star. But again, you don't have to. Like, we don't mention that here. We just say like play frontline and then like maybe pivot on into something else later. And that's pretty much all you have to do from there. But of course, there are different variations as well. Like you could have 5 Anima Squad. You could add in like general frontline. You could do vertical Duelist where you play like 8 Duelists or something like that. But yeah, that's kind of the advantage of her. Like there's no set comp you really need. But I guess the drawback is that the comp's like a little weaker compared to everything else. Next build up we have is Kayle Reroll. Very strong comp with super. So again, like compare this to the Lulu comp, we have multiple things to roll for. We have 2 1-cost units and 4 2-cost units. So we could hit a lot of 3-stars. And obviously in a super comp, that makes a lot of sense because you need the 3-star units to really activate that super trait. But you'd roll for level 1 units first, and then once you hit Kayle 3, you'd go for level 6 and roll for all the other units. So another thing you could do, it's a bit of a weird tech, but you could slow roll at level 5 until you get like 7 Kayles, and then level up to 6, slow roll for everything else. If you have like a lot of health and don't need to stabilize, that is an option you can try. But items for Kayle, Last Whisper, she's an AD champ in this version of the game. So Last Whisper and then just general AD items will do just fine on her. Obviously, like, you need the Kayle augment. I don't know why I need to say this anymore, but you guys know that now. Nasus Mascot. You need the Nasus stacking augment, like stacks on stacks. So if you don't have that, this is going to be a pretty hard comp to play. You could still try it. Let me know how it goes if you don't use it. Apparently, it's still like playable, but like not as much, you know? But to play this comp, we do the same thing as before. Reroll for 1 cost, but the one bonus of him is that he gets a lot of healing from the mascot trait. So he can make a lot of good last stands and just wipe out other units slowly but surely. And that's kind of like a cool thing that Nasus can do because he is a carry unit or like a damage unit that has like a very tanky trait. Like both his traits are tanky actually. Like Bunny Squad gives him health, but we don't run that here. And then what's it called? Mascot gives him a lot of like healing and stuff. But maybe there is a different version of this build where you can go for Anima Squad and the mascots, and that would be pretty cool. But yeah, 1 cost reroll, so just either hyper roll at 3-1 at level 4 or slow roll at level 5. And that's pretty much going to be it. Obviously, you want RFC to give him range and like a bit of safety. Make sure the other mascots die first. And then like just general attack damage items will be fine on him there. Draven reroll. Okay, so this comp got nerfed a lot. So that's why people don't really play it that much anymore. So in case you guys were like playing PBE and you're like, wait a minute, why is Draven in B tier? It's just because they nerfed it a lot. It's still playable, but you probably want like the augment for him, you know? And maybe like a game where you magically natural a lot of Dravens, that would be another option too. But yeah, tank items on Lee Sin, damage items on Draven. Last Whisper, pretty good because obviously like he does only physical damage. And you want to reroll at level 6 for this comp because you're going for 2 costs. Next build up we have is Jinx reroll, so another 2 cost reroll. Same story there, reroll at level 6, but it's a little different because you could focus on like Riven later on, so you want to level up to level 7, get Riven 3 after that if you get a lot of Rivens. Item holder can be like Lulu or Lux until you get Jinx, and Jinx uses AP items this set. So Rage Blade is good for like stacking mana because she attacks really quickly afterwards. And then obviously the Jeweled Gauntlet is just to deal more AP damage. We have a bunch of other option items here. So you could do like Archangels, Rabadons, Spear of Shojin. I actually like Spear of Shojin a lot on her. Hextech Gunblade is decent as well. And then tank items on just like your random units, preferably Riven. But if you don't have Riven 3, maybe throw it on Echo. I believe we go down the rolling patterns down here. Yep. Exactly what we were saying before. Level 6, stage 3-2. Roll for Jinx. And then after that, slow roll for Jinx and then Riven afterwards. But yeah, that is going to be it from us today. Just to summarize at the top. We have like Hacker Zed. Wow, that feels so long ago that we talked about Hacker Zed. But he is going to be like your main bread and butter of this set. Like I think he's the only S+. So S+ there, and yeah, the rest are S's. So like yeah, he's gonna be the main bread and butter. He works well with so many different secondary carries. I feel like this set, secondary carries are very important. So do keep that in mind. So maybe 2 items on your main tank, 3 items on your primary carry, 2 items on your secondary carry, and that's how you probably want to distribute the items this set. A lot of the random legendaries can be used obviously as well. A lot of people ask me what my favorite comp is. It's probably like the Kaisa build, Viego, and Zoe. Those are probably my favorite. It doesn't mean that they're good, but people ask me like what my favorite to play is. Those are my favorite because I think they look the coolest, and like they have like Kaisa's got a lot of like swag, you know. Zoe, that too, because she like auto cast or something like that. I just love units that do that. But yeah, let me know down in the comments like which comps you guys think are the best, which ones you guys are having the most success with. I will be streaming on twitch.tv/BunnyMuffins LOL hopefully every day, so I definitely will see you there, right? I'll give you like a little notification on the website because I know some people have been noticing that as well, but I really want to like play a lot this set, so hopefully you guys share that same sentiment. But that's gonna be it for me today. Hope to see you guys I guess like tomorrow or whatever. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe, and of course smash that like button. Each like is an LP I gain before the next video.